There is nothing we can do. Let's talk about Napoleon. Now, this movie was one of my highly anticipated movies of the year. I actually was so pumped when I first heard that Ridley Scott was making a Napoleon movie. I was like, we might be getting another Gladiator here. Unfortunately, we did not. I wasn't disappointed in the movie. The movie is good. I was just like, when I saw Ridley Scott, historical drama, Joaquin Phoenix, all put into one, my expectations were very high. And unfortunately, it just didn't live up to my expectations. Now, is it my fault my expectations were too high? Probably. I don't know, I just thought, given the character they're portraying there, Napoleon, one of the most famous or infamous historical figures of all time, I would think that there was so much stuff, so many things Ridley Scott could do. But really, this movie is more about Napoleon and Josephine's relationship. Now, I understand that Napoleon was probably and most definitely obsessed with Josephine. That is probably true. I haven't read all Napoleon biographies. I'm only familiarized with Napoleon's conquest and how he was a great general and the tactics, and also how he was kind of used as a figurehead. And in this movie, for a large portion of the movie, we get this wimpy Napoleon. I understand why he might seem wimpy and why he probably was wimpy, why he had mommy issues all the time, but it made it hard to believe that he was this general and an emperor that everyone looked up to. Yes, it's true that people used him as a figurehead, and the masterminds were really behind Napoleon doing all the masterwork, but also Napoleon has to act a certain way. It would have been cool to see Napoleon taking the mask off, right? When he is in his personal life, he is this wimpy guy, this guy who has mommy issues and who's completely obsessed with Josephine, right? But when he puts the Napoleon mask on, the one that, the history books talk about, he is this strong figure, right? Even though he's faking it. It could have been a good story about faking it until you make it, right? Fake it until you make it, from captain to emperor of France and conqueror of all Europe. I just don't think the script was formatted that way, which I think was the service to the story of Napoleon. Another thing I didn't like was the pacing of the movie. We jumped years through scenes, and I understand sometimes it did make sense. Sometimes it was like, go on this mission, and then 4 years later we're on that mission. That makes sense. But then there would be scenes where we would jump like 2 years for no reason. I'm like, why have that scene in the first place and not just go over there and say, hey, Napoleon, remember that thing we talked about? It just seemed like they were just padding time, and it just didn't feel fully developed at times, which, it kind of made the movie feel very slow. And that's another thing. If they wanted to add those scenes, if they really wanted to do that, then this movie should have been a show. This movie really should have been like a 10-episode HBO show, or Apple TV show, because it was produced by Apple. It could have been an Apple TV Plus show with 10 episodes, and they're all divided, covering multiple aspects of Napoleon's life. Because in that case, then the pacing kind of is resolved. It seems like they try to fit in so much, because yes, Napoleon's life and accomplishments are massive. There's so much to cover in 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like, you really do need like 5 hours at least. They really didn't focus on one thing, and when the one thing they did focus on was Napoleon's relationship with Josephine, which sometimes it was kind of like the same struggle constantly, and I feel like there's a different way of making that struggle feel different each time. Now, I know I've been saying a lot of negatives. I did enjoy this movie. I did not hate it. I did enjoy it. I did have a good time with it. Just, again, expectations were high. One thing that did not disappoint, though, were the battles. The battles, if you want to have a reason to go watch this movie, watch it for the battles. Ridley Scott delivers epic battles throughout the movie. There's very little, though. There's very little battle. I think there were like 4 or 5 battles. I wish there were more battles. That's what I'm saying. Maybe an Apple TV show could have been great, because maybe every 2 episodes we get a big battle of Napoleon's conquest. He went on like 60, 70 huge battles. So I wish we would have seen more of that, but what we do get is pretty incredible. It's really the reason to go watch this movie, seeing Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon in these incredibly well-crafted battles. They do feel massive. They feel like stakes are there. You know, even though you know how those battles might end, you do feel the stakes there, which is a very, very difficult thing to do, especially when dealing with a historical drama. Napoleon was a good movie. It just fell short of my expectations. It probably should have been a TV show in order to cover Napoleon's massive history, because I feel like they missed a lot of stuff and didn't show enough of the right things.